My name is Blair Williams. Today is April 29th, 2026. I am here at Heishman's Mill with a few members of people who have a connection with the mill. So I'll just ask everyone to introduce themselves. So we'll start with Randy here.
Hi, Randy Heishman. I am the current owner of the mill. I have two ancestors, Francis Diller and Benjamin Franklin Heishman, who were not related, that have owned this mill. So I'm very glad you guys are here. Thank you.
I'm Cindy Greider Keirn, and my fourth great grandfather was the father of John, who owned the mill. The first John that owned the mill.
I'm Bill Keirn, and I'm merely collateral baggage and here to help.
I'm Jannice Hubbard, and my fifth great grandfather was the father of John that owned the mill.
I'm Bruce Baker, and I'm here with Katie, and she'll say how she's connected to the Greiders.
I'm Kate Baker, and it would be my fifth great grandfather was Jacob.
All right. So the question I always like to ask is sort of how did your ancestor end up in Cumberland County?
They came in through Philadelphia
Okay.
to Lancaster County, and then Jacob and Anna migrated over to here.
So do you know why Jacob and Anna migrated or how they ended up here?
Not for sure.
I can
Okay.
speculate.
Yeah.
So the Dillers were from Lancaster. German-speaking Swiss Mennonites, persecuted, left, grabbed the boats, came through Philadelphia, came to the fertile areas. With them came Bowmans, Greiders, and I believe you might be able to find a ship that Greiders came across one. You can get close. Anyhow, there's only a certain number of them, and it could possibly be the Phoenix, if you want to write that down. They leave Lancaster at the same time and settle along the banks of the Conagwan, and this is where Diller settles. And shortly behind that is where the Greiders come in, the Romans. So that's my speculation, is it was a migration of same like-minded, thought-minded, same people from the same area that came over.
And do we know when Jacob and Anna Greider came to Cumberland County?
If I find the right page. It's in John's biography when they came over here.
Were they Mennonites?
Yes.
Okay.
Mennonites, and most of their kids, Jacob and his kids, were married in the First Evangelical Church, Lutheran Church.
Yeah, they start to, in the Lancaster County area, of course, that's where the split is. It happens between the Mennonites and the Amish. They start to absorb more of the English ways.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes you wonder what their history was before they came here. If milling and farming, and I mean almost everybody was farming, I think, when they first come over. But so if some of them were associated with milling or had worked in a mill or decided that's what they were going to do when they get here, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, a lot of them were involved in stonework. So that's why you see a lot of stone houses around here.
Yeah.
They say Paul's book says that they came from the Rhineland area. And Michael is mentioned first on the tax list in Lancaster County in 1724. So he evidently arrived not later than 23. And Jacob Kreyter, Kreyter, came over in 1717 or 1718 and took up land for himself, his sons, and his brother Michael.
Okay. So they settle along the banks of the Conagwan, Diller, and then Greider. Do we know how long it took them to eventually build this mill or a mill or
Oh, yeah,
what they ended up doing?
The speculation has always been, was there a mill here before this mill? And I don't think that's ever been put to test. Some people said there was a Wilson that may have had a mill here, but for whatever reason, one of the wealthiest families, the Dillers in Lancaster County, who Francis Sr. was a whiskey distiller, made a lot of money. He dies, and there's a Bowman down there also that dies with him. And the father's buried there. With their fortunes, the Dillers come up. Do they build the log house over here? Which there is a huge stipulation of how the mother is taken care of and describes the details of the house, not the brick part, but just the wood part, the log house. The brother John, that's Francis Diller, lives here. The brother John then goes on up the road here and has a vast amount of farmland up there. And he does, well, he brings the church. He brings a Mennonite church here with the Diller Mennonite church. It's up there. And I think you guys visited the graveyard the other day. And his name was not Diller at the time, Francis. It was Tueller, Thueler. And phonetic spelling then says Diller. And that's how Diller becomes Diller's Mill.
They were originally partners then, Diller and Greider.
No, the original partners of this mill were Diller and Snyder. That's the Snyder houses and start the farm is on down here, 2 farms down. And Diller owns the mill. This is up and running in 1806. He leases the mill out to Snyder, and in return he gets so much grain. Across the street is a barn and 6 acres of fruit trees, which also help them with the 2 stills that are located down here by the creek. And if in your research, you'll see that there's a massive dump of fruit into the creek, and there's an investigation done, and they can't figure out who dumped. And there's 6 acres of fruit trees out there, rotted fruit in the creek, but I can't find that anybody was ever charged for it. And that's early. That's an early publication. So does that answer your question, Blair?
Yeah. So so when does Greider come into the picture with the mill?
1845.
1845. All right. So
That's when Sam Diller gets the mill, and he and John Greider Sr. were partners.
okay.
So that's when Greider family came into it.
The Greiders had already been living here for a fair bit then.
I was thinking they came here in 1751, but I'm not sure.
All right, because I have Henry Greider marrying Elizabeth Hohenstein in 1827 in Cumberland County. So they'd already been pretty well established before they eventually become partner or take an interest in the mill then.
Right.
So who was it was John? Was John the original, or was that Jacob Greider that?
John.
Okay.
Jacob wasn't, as far as I know, ever involved in it. I haven't found anything that said he was.
Okay.
But I got stuck on Henry, so sorry.
And is that John Greider, the son of John and Anna?
Jacob and Anna.
Jacob and Anna, yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And then John Greider Jr. acquired the mill in 1868. And then it said by the end of the 19th century, Curtis Keiter, Keiter, had the mill.
Is that just a misspelling of Greider?
I don't know.
Because the sale bill of 1919, I believe, says Greider.
Well, there were 3 Greiders that owned it. All John Greider.
Yes.
John 1, 2, and 3. Senior, juniors, 3,
I'm
whatever.
just learning this for the first time.
Yeah. I was just learning this time. That's why it's on this big yellow pad.
I just figured it was a misspelling of the last name. It was the same John all the way through, but no.
No, it's 3 of them. By the years, it has to be 3, and the 3rd one is the one who became the postmaster, I think.
And that's about the same time frame that Wilhelm Schimmel then comes on the scene.
New post office was established, and that was in the paper on Thursday, November 23rd, 1893. Was when they established.
1893.
Yeah.
So that's right at the end. I think Schimmel dies in 1890.
I don't know. I read all about him yesterday. I can't
Did you?
remember.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we stood there and read that whole thing on Schimmel. Oh, actually, it's on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 3 John Greiders from
Yes.
1840 till
The
1843 until
about 1890, somewhere around 1890.
okay. And do we know what the
We must have still owned it in 1893, though.
They still owned it in 1918, according to the sale bill.
Okay.
So do we know what the main product of the mill was? Or is it mainly just, you know, the byproducts of the local farms, or was it fruit or something else?
Well, that map, if that's the 1858 map.
Yep.
And I'll never find that paper because I want it. It said something about plaster mill.
Yes, yeah.
What is that? I didn't
Um,
understand what that was.
It's the stuff you put on hard rock, sheet rock.
Okay, so it is
and
that type of stuff.
It is, yeah.
I'm like, okay, I didn't think that's what it was, but that,
The Greiders were running the end of the burrstone grilling, milling, grilling. It's-
we're
Uh,
reading that, huh?
so
Okay.
The burrstone milling goes the whole way back to the Roman age,
Okay.
and it's really not improved until Wolf Company down in York, I believe it is, could be Gettysburg, I forget, start to do these machines, right?
Mhm.
And that comes apart at the end of the 1800s, beginning of the 1900s. At the end of the Greider ownership in the beginning of the Heishman, it has changed over to a Foley mill. And that's everything you see out in the mill today. The stones are taken out, the undershot wheels are taken out, and it's modernized. And that is sort of the end of grist milling.
Switch to hammer mills or whatever.
What kind of mill was it called when it was in transition, after the transition?
A Foley mill. It's called a grist mill up until Heishman takes it over, and that's called a Foley mill.
Foley mill.
Yeah, flour mill.
All right, so this wasn't then a traditional mill in the sense that we normally think of it as sort of milling grain for local farmers. It was plaster for construction then.
It was plaster. They did animal feed.
They did do animal feed. Okay.
3 different types of mill. Of flour. They would grind it down to a lot of stuff they threw away, stuff that we keep today, but belongs to flour. But also where we're sitting here today wasn't here. What was here is next to it was a sawmill. So this was also a sawmill. There's still some boards down in the basement, and I'm sure there's boards everywhere in here that were milled on site.
Mhm.
So the end of the Greider period is the end of the sawmill. It's torn down, ground is elevated, and this store area and delivery dock is put in by the Heishmans.
So this was a fairly comprehensive mill then. I mean, if it's doing plaster, grain, flour, all of that, sawmill.
Yeah. Yeah, and it changes to Greider, of course, when the post office is put in this whole area, it becomes the name Greider. Diller Bridge was basically how you found your way around here, Diller Mill or Diller Bridge, which was a 3-span covered bridge. You can still see the standards are still in the water down there.
Now, was it a general mill because it was the only one sort of nearby, or were there other mills that?
Yeah, there's a book, and I advise you all to get it. It's The Mills of Cumberland County. Right here. You can get this in at the Historic Society. And there's a fantastic write-up in there of this mill, and it'll tell you that don't quote me on this, on 114 miles of the Conway Creek, which starts up in Newburgh, ends down in Harrisburg. I think there are 140 mills in that 114 miles.
My word.
And just in this area alone, there are 1, 2, 3, I believe 3 mills within a stone shot. And you guys have heard the term mill pond. So we have a mill pond down here, and this was navigable water, meaning you could not, the dam you see out there today was not the dam that was allowed when the Greiders opened. You had to be able to navigate this water, so the dam did not go the full length across. So boats could transport goods down to Cumberland Creek. I forget where I was going with that. Oh, so the mill pond, you needed the mill pond because that was your water power source. You had to back the water up. Mills only ran, it was not a year-long thing. You could only run as long as you had water. Of course, spring, summer, end of summer, you don't have the water you had. So you only have a finite period of grinding. And then you got to find other things to do with that. It's not until they put an engine house on the back here that they're able to grind year round and in low water conditions. But by that time, Woolco was in, or Woolsworth was in. So you're able to get flour year round, and it starts to be the end of the mills.
So this was another post Greider installation, the engine house.
The engine house post Greider, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sure they did other things. They had to do other things to have an income, other than possibly storing stuff here. But if you store stuff, you invite the boll weevil, you invite lots of vermin. I'm not sure what they did outside of the milling for an income. If there was enough here to produce income to have a large family living across the street at the time, did it support them? I can't answer that.
Jacob had a 200-acre plantation.
Did it say where?
I was gonna ask. I mean, were there any? Have you guys, Cindy or anyone else, have you looked at the tax records to see what they were being taxed on? Or I mean, at this point, they were probably still being taxed just on property that they owned and cattle and livestock and
Yes.
so forth. But
I do have tax records too. The problem is, I can't find it.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah, and I can't imagine how you got this all cleaned out, because we
Oh,
were here when Bill was here.
I had nothing to do with it. That
Oh,
was
it's amazing.
that was all Davis Tracy who did that. He was the executor of the Foshag estate.
Cindy, how many acres?
200.
200.
And if I find my Jacob papers, I'll tell you the name of the plantation.
that looks to be a fairly standard site or plot of land
200 to 300 acres.
in terms of what I guess the original warrants and patents were for, and it'd be those 200-acre blocks.
And Jacob's plantation, the interesting part, I've got Jacob's will. Most of this came from your building. But I have Jacob's mill, he died intestate, but when they did the estate, they sold it off and everybody got equal shares, boys and girls.
Oh wow!
Even though my grandpa was the oldest, that wasn't done. And I also found one for Martin Greider, who we think is Jacob's dad, and same way, his was divided equally among his kids.
That's very uncommon for that.
It
kind
was.
of Miller can speak on that.
I was trying to think, I don't know when that kind of came about, that the oldest didn't inherit, because I thought that was unusual when I found that the oldest did not inherit, everybody did.
Especially with the German background, that being that
Mhm.
close.
Yeah.
Well, and I wonder if that's a state law, because especially if he's dying without a will, then theoretically it would go to the state,
Probate.
or the county
Your table
to prohibit the
Did you find a will?
Not a will.
an estate inventory.
I have the estate inventory.
Very good, Blair.
Yeah.
The plantation name was, I don't know how to pronounce it. Messuage.
Massag.
That was the plantation name. And I've got the orphan court records because he had minor children, and of course, mom didn't get the kids, was guardianship of the kids.
Doesn't massag mean buildings on a lot? I think it does.
I had never heard the word till I found it as the name of a plantation, but I'm sure his was like 200 acres, and I'm thinking John had,
It's amazing they come up in that denomination. You'd think it'd be a portion of a section, like a quarter section, half a section or something, but they're odd numbers.
here is that section of the map
How do you,
Yeah.
how do you spell massag in there?
right there.
Yeah.
And did the estate inventory say where the, or I guess as it was probated, were you able to find a location of where the farm was?
I think it is in there. It's hard to read. Very hard.
I'm just wondering how close it was to the.
It was
mill
close
itself.
here. You just have to find the right one. So I put clips on these to try to be able to find stuff that I'm not doing very well. I'm sorry.
So I came across that word massage before in researching. I believe I reached out to David Smith and he told me that means a plot of land with buildings or something. It's for taxable purposes only.
So I have East Pennsboro tax list for Jacob, John, and Martin going back to 1781. And then I don't have anything from 23 to 26. We found them for Silver Spring for Kreider, for John Kreider, 2 of them, and one for the heirs in 1832 for Jacob Kreider heirs.
So there's a Kreider's Mill that's very famous. If you look that up, it's down that area. And East Pennsboro is interesting because that's where the Bowmans are there, and that's where the Sheriff Bowman is the sheriff, and that's that house right across the street. It's all incestuous.
So I also found, and this one just for you, no, you don't pay for that, you sorry. The triennial tax rates for John Diller Miller. Francis was a farmer, John was a farmer, Abraham a farmer, and then some of the hikes.
You're finding that in Silver Springs.
That's what it was listed as. And I'll give you copies.
Interesting.
Make copies of all that, or whatever you want.
Thank you.
And actually, I brought you a thumb drive that has, and I told you, mine is not organized and analyzed and all that good stuff, but it's got all my Pennsylvania writer info that I just throw in files on my computer.
Thank you so much. That'll be interesting to look at. Well, I know my day's shot.
I want you just to sit here, wait a minute,
Gone,
I'm
because
not sure.
I didn't even know about these.
Right on.
There you go.
And I didn't
No,
know
I don't.
these people
Better give them the right one.
because my grandfather
There you
was
One
raised
for
here.
you as well.
Raised in Kansas.
Yes,
go.
and so I'm not even sure.
So, like I say, it's not organized.
Yep.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Blair can speak to this better than I can. There's a migration that happens here that goes west, comes along with the railroad, building the railroad and the lands out to the Indian Territory. It's great migration. The Weeklies end up going that path, but they also head south. They head south towards Tennessee too. But it appears that the Greiders probably went to, when did Kansas come into the picture?
My grandfather was actually born in Chillicothe, Missouri.
Okay.
And after he was a year old, his mother passed.
You know, beyond him, is it
There-
Indian
from
territory?
there, they went to Indiana and lived in Indiana for I'm not sure how many years. And then he was put on a train and sent to Kansas near Pratt, a little town called Iuka, where he was raised by his older brother.
Okay.
And that's where he met my grandmother. And the rest is history, but part of what he did do, he did go to Oklahoma for the land rush, was not able to complete it because he developed pneumonia. So he
Interesting.
came back to Kansas and he spent the rest of his life there.
Interesting.
It was interesting.
I was gonna say, I mean, because in the 1840s, I believe it's the 1840s, there is a very big migration from this area to Kansas, to the point where there's a rather famous cookbook. I think it's supposed to have like the first recipe for shoe fly pie, but it's reproduced in Kansas because there's such a demand for, all these families are from here and they want sort of nostalgic for the recipes that they had growing up.
Right.
So this local Cumberland Valley cookbook is republished in Kansas. But I believe that's a little bit earlier than what you're referencing. So
Well, 1840s is when Henry ends up in Indiana.
so the
Because his first I've got two copies of 2 land patents for him in 1849. But he had to be there a little bit before that because it said he came from, I think he filed in Noble County. I don't remember if he filed in Noble County property, I think, and he was living in Kosciuszko County.
Yeah.
This is the way it was. But that land grant came through Fort Wayne.
I mean, at that point, he would have been. So Henry is the oldest child of Jacob and Anna. And I think he was born in what 1802.
1802.
Yeah. So I mean, he would have been fairly old then to
Yes.
be migrating.
Oh no, he was already migrating before
Okay.
that. He had the wanderlust, I think. But Paul had said in his book that he had something to do with the McCormick's Reaper.
With what?
With the McCormick's Reaper. And was it Fred or Frank Watts?
Frederick Watts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Frederick Watts, yeah.
He was born 1801, I think, in Carlisle.
Mhm.
So he and Henry would have been only a year apart in age. Easily would have met.
Yep.
But I also found recently 2 newspaper articles that were talking about references of people who had evidently bought the Reaper.
So you think he knew Frederick Watts?
I would imagine he did if he was.
So the Watts homestead is down where Sheets is down here in Plainfield. I don't know if you guys went past Sheets or not, but directly across from that was the Watts homestead. Beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous house. Do you remember that house, Blair, or is that before your time?
That's before my time.
And he was a professor or a teacher at Penn State. I forget.
Well, so he's the founder. Of
He
Penn
founded
State.
Penn
Yeah.
State.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He started an agriculture
Yes,
school
the
and
agriculture, yes.
worked its way up through.
Yeah, but that's another reason I didn't get much done on John and got off on
They
Fred.
plowed his house down.
Well,
Yeah.
but Penn State is one of the reasons we were out here all the time. His cousin and her father both taught at Penn State, and she's one of them that got me into all of this.
Yeah.
You might be interested in I tried to sell one point in time, and this is neither here nor there, but it's a huge framed, about as big as that, maybe a little bit smaller, and it has professors of Penn State.
Really?
Oh, really?
1800s. Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
he wasn't there in the
No, I
1800s.
wasn't. No,
Yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting. And I do have a bunch of pictures of Heishman Mill and Greider Bridge. I don't know if this is the same postcard you've got or not. I've got postcarding there.
It probably is.
My arm long enough?
Let's look at the picture.
Well,
Oh yeah, that's the same.
Oh, yeah.
That's the same.
Oh, yeah, the same one as Scan.
mhm.
Yeah,
And if you look at this, you can see the
Shed.
barn.
yeah. We were looking at that. It looked like some kind of shed in there.
Actually, that's a shed. The barn's behind it. You can just see a little bit of it.
Yeah.
See, I am questioning this now because I think that's the engine house. And this is where they ran the logs to
Yeah.
be milled.
So they had something driving the sawmill other than water, at least. Now, was this always a turbine mill, or was it a?
It was an undershot water turbine mill from the start until 1919.
And I do have pictures of the bridge. And it says it's 7 miles.
So if you go out and look at the tax records, or if you go out and look at those two papers I talked about, it'll show that there was people paid to maintain the covered bridge.
Oh, yeah.
And it'll tell you how much they paid and what they put in to the year. Now,
Sure.
my father says he remembers one truck went across way too much and broke down through it.
That was in the 50s, but I forget which year for sure.
And
Think
the
56.
road that you see out here today. Now, this road, if you look right next to the house here, there's a road that's no longer being used. That was the Baltimore Turnpike. That's how they got the flour from here down to Baltimore. The road that's now called Old Mill Road was not there.
Yeah.
If you go down to where the stanchions are of the bridge, you can, and you look at the older maps, I don't think this one shows it. That road was down even further, that connected over towards Plainfield.
Huh.
So it's not until this bridge is built that this Old Mill Road comes down through, and that bridge almost gets taken out in the 72 flood. In the 72 flood, where we're standing now, we would be about water almost up to your kneecaps.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it almost takes that bridge out. My father and I, my father had a place over in Plainfield where he worked with his brother Gary and his other brother-in-law. We got in the vehicle and drove over and came down, and we parked up here on top of the hill. And at that point in time, the water was not above the bridge. But we're standing there and we look up, and here comes a camper down through the water, just like it was just parked, and it's coming towards the bridge. I get scared and take off running because I think it's going to hit the bridge and be gone. It hits the bridge, and you hear this sound, and it gets sucked down, comes over and pops up on the other side, almost completely unharmed.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
And then the next day, the water goes over the bridge.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Yeah, that is amazing.
So here, so Jacob and Anna had 9 children. Their 6th child, John, is the one that eventually takes over the mill here. Your great grandfather Henry decides it's not for him. He migrates west. Do we know what the rest of the family sort of stay local, or do they also?
No, what was it on the 1860 census she was reading last night? There were like 4 or 5 of them all right next door to each other in Indiana.
In Indiana.
Yeah.
Before, I don't know if before or after they'd been in Kansas and came, because some of them went and came back and went back.
So it's mainly. So most of the family is moving, and it's only John or that
Yeah.
stays, and his family's the one that establishes roots here.
Yeah, a couple of the girls I think stayed out here because they were married to hikes.
Okay.
Hikes. I think they say hikes around here.
Hikes,
It's a
okay.
hikes.
I have no clue.
I think so.
They had it in the book,
I do.
GIX, and I'm like,
I
That's-
do know that one of the, and I said this earlier, one of the brothers or the sons is of military age, and he dies of the influenza flu in 1917 in this house over here.
Okay.
And then the mother of one of the Johns is out gardening and gets a splinter under her thumb and dies from the infection. I forget what they called that back then.
Wow.
So there, that might be one of the reasons why we're getting out of here. This place is on it.
Yeah.
Go to someplace cleaner.
So they sell in 1918. Do we know what happens to them after that?
I don't. Do you guys know what happens to them?
mm-mm.
No.
But I will look into the John
Okay.
because I'm like, Will asked me about that, and he was always he didn't want to let me go up and see what he had upstairs because it was Dorothy and I and him, and he was an old bachelor, and he said, I better not take you in my house.
Yeah.
I said, that's fine.
You couldn't have got through it anyway.
Yeah.
Well, we together got into the front room.
Yeah, we did.
So for the record, Heishman's run this mill till 1947. Benjamin is now living in the house, but he's not running the mill. His son Howard, who's running the mill in New Jersey, comes down to run this mill and take over for his dad Howard. And that point in time, there's a barn over here that gets torn down. A garage gets put in because, again, it's seasonal, so he needs money. So he's running a garage out there. There's a gas pump that's across the street here. And I have a sign out here that I found cleaning out the mill and had it restored. It says Howard Heishman's economizer. And I still got, I think even here, I still got some of the stuff from when it was a working garage somewhere in all this stuff. But when Heishman sell out, they sell it to a Newhouser Wright. Whether this was producing grain, I think it was, but Newhouser Wright also owns what's called now the Barnett's Mill. And they're shipping stuff out of what's called Colonel Miller's dock in Huntsdale. So they're taking product over there to be sold in Barnett's Mill. Now, Newhouser Wright doesn't have it very long. I don't know what happens there, but the wife, I think, of Newhouser ends up with the deed and puts this up for sale. And a guy named William Foshag, Bill Foshag, from DC, Washington, DC, very eccentric individual, rides up through here on one of his antique vehicles. And it's not a vehicle that we think of. It's like either a motorcycle or a mail truck. I can't remember which one it is. Sees this for sale. But at this point in time, the house has been divided from the mill. He buys the mill, and this is around the 1969 time frame, and lives in the mill. And the funny thing about it is he sets up a complete system downstairs to take a shower, pulling water out of the creek. And he's got a piece of grate that he stands on, and water goes straight down into the creek. And so does his toilet. And that is his shower for taking a shower.
That sounds like him.
And he does that up until, I think it's 1981, when he's able to purchase the house over here
Oh, wow.
and bring the properties back together again.
Oh,
He dies in 2016, I think it is, 2017, 2018, I can't remember anymore. 2019, then we go into discussions with the estate is given to Pennsylvania Historic Museum Commission, PHMC. And the moment that the estate is handed to PHMC, that same moment is when I buy the mill. My wife and I buy the mill. And when we buy the mill, there is a permanent easement put on the outside of the mill saying that it will never change. I can't put, I can't put doors in and stuff like that. And that's what we wanted to happen.
Sure.
So that's how that happened.
that's interesting.
Go ahead, Blair.
No, yeah. I'm just thinking. I'm assuming that in all the research that's been done, there's been no sort of correspondence or anything that's been discovered, or nothing that was saved between the Indiana family and.
We actually were talking about that last night of all the stuff. No letters.
Mhm.
It's like they didn't write to the ones back here. At least we have nothing in Indiana that I have found.
If you search those two newspapers, there's always an account of the area, and it's almost weekly. And then those accounts will say, visiting from the Greiders. And they're the things you want to pay close attention to see what those families are, and it'll say where they're visiting from.
Check those out. Figure out which website they're on.
Newspapers.com.
They're Okay,
What was the second paper you said?
The Valley Times Star.
okay. I have
Didn't get that.
newspapers.
Before it's the Valley Times Star, it's the Star of the Valley. And there is another name in there too. Same with the Sentinel was the Herald. What else was it? The
Well, I
Weekly.
mean, it was always the Sentinel, but I mean, there's different Carlisle newspapers like the Herald and the American Volunteer.
Yeah.
The Valley Sentinel. But yeah, no, I think the Sentinel starts off as a Newville paper. I might be mistaken, but
I'm not sure. I know that the Valley Times Star starts out as a Blowsville paper and a Plainfield paper, and then merged to go to Newville.
that's the key is figuring out what all the small places are called. Kerrsville and
Yeah.
and Greider's Mill and
Pay close attention because 1751 and before, this is still Lancaster County.
Yes, I own a copy of Mother Cumberland.
There you go.
That was the first thing Dorothy told me to get Mother Cumberland, you're gonna need it.
Early
Lancaster County.
Lancaster County, yeah. And the same, I know there's Greiders and Keiters in Perry County,
Mhm.
but up until
1820.
1820, that's Cumberland County.
Mhm.
Thanks, Blair.
It's one of the few dates I can remember.
There you go.
1850, 1820.
That's good.
So, Cindy, most of your research then was on Henry and the Indiana family. So there's not a lot on John and this side of the family that you know about.
I haven't worked at it.
Yeah.
Obviously, I told Will I would try. That was 19 years ago. I'm sorry.
And I think that connection lies, Blair, with the Bowman side of the family.
Okay.
I have never been able to find somebody to come here and say, oh yeah, I got the information from the Bowman family. It's just what I've dug up. The sheriff of Bowmansville
Mhm.
related to the Bowmans that lived in the house across the street here, related to the Bowman who was carved into the stone outside here on the mill. You know any Bowmans?
I don't. Spoke with Dale. That's about it.
Yeah.
We talked about the fact we don't know if there are any descendants still living here to go talk to.
Yeah,
And
Yeah, I don't
unfortunately,
know.
you no longer have a phone book to look in. And is there any Greiders here? You know.
The Historic Society has a lot of older phone books
Yeah.
that you
Oh,
can
yeah.
go and look at. I probably have some here, but I can't find, Facebook. Just go out and hit Greider on Facebook and see if you're friends with friends of friends of friends. And I can't find any Greiders. So I don't know if any Greiders is still live in the area. Now you'll see Craters quite a bit. In fact, there's a Craters mill that's still operating over towards Perry County, and they run that truck up and down the road all the time.
In 1830, Henry was in Perry County
Crater or Greider?
as Greider, I think. I don't
you
remember.
know, the fact that you can't find Greiders, but you can find Kreiders. Is it possible there was a split in the family?
Mm,
And
Me,
some
my
kept-
personal opinion, I just think it's phonetic
Okay.
spelling. I mean, you're coming from Lancaster County speaking German
Mhm.
to an English area, and you have to converse with people, and one of them is the tax censuses.
Mhm.
So how do you tell somebody who speaks English that your name is Greider in a heavy German
Yeah.
accent
Yeah.
without them phonetically spelling it as they're hearing it?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Right?
I
A lot
did
of
read
that.
somewhere that when some of the immigrants came through Ellis Island, that the people who took their information based the spelling on what they heard.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it would be very confusing.
Yeah, I mean, Diller, if you think about it, if you put yourself in that speaking time, they would have said Dula.
Mhm.
And if we're listening and we're listening quick because we got 10 people behind them,
Mm-hmm.
you're writing down Diller, right? Not Thuler. And then if you go up and look on the Diller gravesite up there that has 3 names on it, you'll see Tuller on one side and Diller on the other side. Now, if you were to go through this county today and try to count all the Dillers, you'd have to spend a week doing it. That's how many are in this county and still centrally located here. And that all stems from the Tuller and their migration of persecution from Switzerland down through to here.
I think the other thing to remember too is the codification of names is a fairly recent phenomenon. Especially, I mean, like, I was just listening to something where you didn't get a social security card until you started working. It wasn't when you were born,
Right.
or a number. So this whole tracking you from, and having the same name as a legal name to follow you your entire life is an extremely recent phenomenon. So, especially 1850s, there's nothing stopping me from changing my name, and let alone how it's spelled. If I'm literate or if someone else is literate, I can spell, as you were saying, Randy, I can spell my name one way. I'm giving it to the census taker or the tax collector, and he's hearing it another way and spelling it that way. So, and then after a while it just gets oh yeah, no, this is how I spell my name.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like the Cisco Kid.
Yeah.
I think your point, Randy, is interesting with various immigration people or tax collector people. There was a line of people. They didn't sit down with half an hour and talk to the head, maybe
If
a
you look,
minute or two, and there was this line behind them. So they were kind of pressured to keep moving.
and you could tell by, if you look at the sentences and the person who's writing it down, there is no change in the script or the ink that he's using, and until you get through a lot of them, and I'm sure he's writing the same time. Next.
Yeah. There may have been some animosity there too towards, okay, I don't like these German people, so I'll just write whatever.
Well, I don't know. At that time period, the only real 2 options you had around here were English, Scott-Irish, and German.
Yeah.
And especially in this area, it's just particularly German. I mean, you get up Carlisle and Newville area, you're getting more into the Scotch-Irish and the Presbyterians, and where these people were more German Reform and Lutheran. So that's you got people who are speaking, but you have people that are working together for a mutual cause. And so the animosity, I don't know that there would. I'm sure there were, but I don't know what it would be, because you had to work together, right? The farmers had to bring their stuff here, right? We have a famous Governor Rittner Highway's named over here. He was a farmer. In fact, he worked on his uncle's farm, Lefevre, and he would come to this mill with Lefevre to grind stuff. He met his wife here at this mill, and then later on becomes what's called the duchy. He's the one who expands his house is not far from here. He expands does a real lot of stuff because of his uncle for educational purposes, which leads to the 1-room schoolhouses in the area, but also led to a big rebellion down in Harrisburg. You remember what that was called?
No.
Something shot. The Buckshot Rebellion, I think is what it's called. So.
I guess one of the last things that I'm wondering about, and this might be a question more so for you, Randy, is there's obviously a Schimmel connection, and you mentioned it a few times. It sort of would have been at the tail end of maybe the son's time, or Jacob Jr.
I don't remember
or John Jr.
Yeah.
With that sort of 1880 time period with Schimmel coming in, carving in.
Yeah, Schimmel gets here right after the Civil War. So I think it's 1865. We know he's here. We know he's the big word of mouth is Schimmel carved at my house. Schimmel carved at my farm. I know this because my parents told me this. My great parents told me this. If you go by the factual history, he carved at one place that we know of, and that's right here. And it makes sense because there's a sawmill here, right? We know that he goes down to the bridge and sits at the bridge and carves because kids were making fun of him one day, and he hit him, and they bashed him with a rock and said he was dead, and went to go get people to come and get Schimmel because he's dead. He was not. He's back up carving again, and that happens. He gets on a train. He would ride a train up to Plainfield from Carlisle and get off and then walk the whole way to here. And he was so drunk one time, the train didn't stop. He thought it stopped. He walks off the train while it's moving. They think he's dead. They go back and he's walking down the sidewalk.
He was well protected.
Yeah. I think he was well inebriated.
Yeah.
That's what protected him most of the time.
Little pickled, yeah.
But Schimmel is, without a doubt, the #1 folk carver in the United States. And Cumberland County is very, very lucky to have that association. So much so that the Smithsonian has Schimmels in it. The Williamsburg has Schimmels in it, collected by Rockefeller. He's been collected by very, very prestigious names. And that all comes from right here with the Greiders. And he stayed, we know he stayed over across there in the summer kitchen, which is the back part of that over there. And the only other place we know he stayed at was the almshouse before he died, and local prisons. But he did go to Carlisle, and he did ride the trains.
Now, there used to be a Schimmel carving like on the mill, right?
It was a bell,
Oh, it was
a
a
bell
bell.
carving. So there was a carver down in
Okay.
Schimmel started to be replicated right after he died. And that's just now coming to light that people have been mimicking his carvings, and it happens today. Gutshaw, there's like 4 big name carvers, and they all replicate Schimmels. In the area here, we had Barnett's and Barrett, or who were the 2 other carvers?
Mounts.
And is it Barrett?
Something along those lines.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I can't think of it right now. But to be replicated like that, Pook and Pook, which is a huge auction house down in Lancaster County, just sold 2 facing little eaglets or chickens, whatever you want to do that. I think it was $25,000 or $29,000. Some of them have brought $350,000. And this is a guy who just trucked carving and would trade his stuff for food and alcohol. I was lucky. So here's a story for you. This was passed down to me from my grandfather. When my great-grandfather moved here in 1919, his first thing was to clean out the mill. And my grandfather said he and his brothers were in here cleaning out the mill, and they started to find boxes of carvings. And they burned them in the fireplace.
Oh my word.
Yeah.
Oh my word.
Right? Right.
Oh, that's sickening.
Yeah. So you think back on now, but my grandmother had an original Schimmel. Don't know what happened to that. And her sister had an original Schimmel that came out of here. And that Schimmel, I believe, is out in Washington State. And my cousin has that. And I'm trying to get that from her. But I don't think it's going very well.
Did he use any particular single type of wood, or did he decide
I'm not a carver, but I would suspect pine.
pine? Because it's softer,
softwood, yeah.
softer wood, yeah.
And he did a monochrome paint, very distinctive to Schimmel, and that is copied not long after he dies. So unless you have the provenance of going back to, hey, my sixth great grandmother, whatever, lived along Conoway Creek, and we have writings that Schimmel came by and gave this to the kids. The only way you can tell if a Schimmel is original anymore, and I mean you have to really, really look, and you're still not certain, is to send that paint away to be tested.
Ah, okay.
Oh, we don't.
So I'm sure, and Cumberland County Historic Society is the holder of the largest collection of Schimmels. The second would be Williamsburg, I believe.
Or went to third.
What's that?
Went to third, maybe.
Yeah, and that's Williamsburg, right?
No, it's Delaware.
And that was that Rockefeller? That was DuPont.
DuPont. Yeah.
DuPont did that. Rockefeller did the one down in Williamsburg, and that's not long after Schimmel dies that Rockefeller starts collecting. But I'm sure there are pieces in those collections. If you examine them, you're not going to get 100% certainty that they're Schimmels.
My word.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm very skeptical anymore when I look at a Schimmel. The York County, which isn't far from here, they have an historic society down there. And they had two large eagle Schimmels down there. And somebody broke in and stole both of them. And have never found the person who did that.
Oh my word.
Now, has it come back up for auction? I bet you it has. Yeah.
Huh.
That's about all I have. But I always like to end by asking: is there anything I should have asked, or that anyone would like to expand upon before I stop the recording?
Just that we have more work to do.
That's how it always is.
And I'm so glad you guys came in, because if you didn't come in, I didn't know my relatives were just buried right up the road here in the cemetery.
Mhm.
When you said Bowman, and I went out and checked Ancestry, I'm like, yeah, there it is. So I found her grave, and they said, yeah, right off of Old Mill Road, on what would be the DeArmond farm.
Yeah, John Deere.
And you guys went up and looked at those graves,
We did.
and you found other names.
We got a whole ton of pictures.
And a lot of them, the tombstones are broken over, right?
Yeah.
A lot of them are, yeah. And some of them we had to dig up and.
So it sounds like a good Eagle Scout project.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you want to look though, you'll have to roll them more. We turn them face down so they don't erode anymore.
Okay.
And,
Cleared clutter.
Showing
It's a
Anna
great
stuff.
what's that?
Showing Anna stuff.
Oh,
Oh yeah, yeah.
We cleaned one stuff.
That's outstanding.
Anna. Jacob's Anna.
It's
Yeah.
much prettier.
But I don't think he's there.
You
I think
can
he's
tell
in
that
Silver
it's
Springs.
We born after the pictures.
Cindy, you may want to share
Tell
the will
what
that's
said
assigned the land. But maybe Randy doesn't know that. That will that you found,
I know which one it was.
whether it designates that land, that.
I know
Oh.
which will.
oh,
Oh,
the,
okay.
what Sherry read before we started.
Well, I thought.
I think that's
I
right, the
Cindy
one she
did.
read.
Maybe.
So we can circle real back quick to Schimmel. Schimmel's buried in a pauper's grave, unmarked grave, on what's called the old folks home or whatever out the other side of town, and nobody knows where his grave is.
Oh, my word.
Right? And you would think with the money with the DuPonts, the money with the Rockefellers, and even the Cumberland County Historic Society, that you try to figure out where Schimmel came from. Why did he come here?
Yeah.
Right? Can you find his grave? Things of that just drive me nuts.
Yeah, I hear you.
Just drive me nuts.
Yeah.
I think I came close one time that coming through Ellis Island, and there's a sponsor name there, and there's a Schimmel down there. There's been again, word of mouth. He killed somebody and he came here, right?
Mm.
There's always these little stuff that's handed down in time,
Mm-hmm.
but nobody really knows why he came here, why he came after the Civil War to this area. Where did he come from? And I tell you, I've written to those two museums and said, would you be interested in helping me find out where he came from? And I got 0 replies. But everybody is happy to have a Schimmel. Nobody wants to know the history behind
The
it.
carver himself.
Yeah. Carl Pass, a good friend of mine, did his thesis on Schimmel, and that was before AI, before you had all this internet options to try to go out and find out this information. And I've been trying to get somebody who's getting a PhD in history to take on trying to pass the torch from Carl to them. I've been unsuccessful in finding that.
That would be awesome.
That would be
Yeah.
awesome.
I'm not PhD material.
You never know.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming here and sort of expanding, our knowledge of Heishman's Mill and the area a little bit. So I appreciate it.
Thank
Larry,
you.
thank you for helping us.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time. Yep. Good luck.